The maintenance bay beneath Terminal Rodoviario Snow Paulo reeked of diesel fumes and something that reminded Luke Foster of his grandmother's basement damp concrete mixed with decades of accumulated grease. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in that particular frequency that made his teeth ache, casting everything in a sickly yellow that turned his work clothes the color of old mustard. "Hand me that pipe wrench, would you?" Luke called to his apprentice, Marcus, a 19-year-old kid who'd been shadowing him for 3 months now. The boy was eager, but still jumped every time the old steam pipes knocked against the ceiling. "The big one, or the big one?" "Always the big one, when I don't specify." Luke wiped his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving a streak of pipe, joint compound across his temple. 27 years I've been crawling under buildings, fixing what people break, and I swear every day brings some new impossible leak. The terminal above them hummed with activity, thousands of people moving through the concourse, heading to destinations across Brazil and beyond. But down here, in the mechanical bowels of the building, it was just Luke and the eternal war against entropy. Water always found a way, pipes always corroded, seals always failed. His phone buzzed. Text from his daughter Sophia. "Dad, can you pick up milk on your way home? And those cookies you like?" He smiled despite the cramped working conditions. 25 years old, PhD in biochemistry, and she still remembered his weakness for chocolate. "Chip cookies. Some things never changed, Mr. Foster?" Marcus's voice carried a strange note. "You might want to see this." Luke scooted out from under the main water line, his back protesting against the concrete floor. Marcus was standing next to access panel 7G, the one that led to the old abandoned transit tunnels. The panel was open, which was weird because those tunnels had been sealed for 15 years. "I didn't open that," Marcus said quickly. "I was just checking the pressure gauges, and I heard this humming, not electrical humming, something else." Luke listened. There it was, a deep, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through the walls themselves. It reminded him of whale songs he'd heard in documentaries, but mechanical, purposeful, probably just the air circulation system acting up again, Luke said, but he grabbed his flashlight anyway. City's been talking about updating the ventilation for years. Never gets around to it. He peered into the tunnel. The humming grew louder. His flashlight beam caught something that definitely wasn't city infrastructure, smooth metallic surfaces that curved in ways municipal engineering never did. The metal seemed to shift color as his light hit it, like oil on water. "That's new," he muttered. "Should we call someone?" Marcus asked. "Call who? City maintenance? They'll just file a report and forget about it." Luke checked his tool belt out, of habit. Flashlight, multi-tool, pipe cutter, thread compound, various wrenches. Everything he needed to fix normal problems. Besides, whatever it is, it's not hurting anyone. Probably some artist's installation that got abandoned. But as he said it, the humming changed pitch, rising to something almost urgent. And was it his imagination, or did the temperature just drop 10 degrees? "You know what? Let's take a look. But we stay together, and if anything seems dangerous, we get out. Deal?" Marcus nodded, though he looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Luke squeezed through the access panel, his broad shoulders scraping against the concrete frame. The tunnel beyond was larger than he remembered from the old blueprints, and the source of the humming became immediately obvious. Something that was definitely not human-made filled most of the tunnel space. It was roughly cylindrical, about the size of a city bus, but the surface flowed like liquid mercury held in an invisible container. Panels of soft blue light pulsed along its length in patterns that suggested communication, or maybe distress. "Holy shit," Marcus whispered. "Language," Luke said automatically, then realized how ridiculous that sounded under the circumstances. But yeah, holy shit. The thing ship, vehicle, had several obvious breaches in its hull. Fluid that glowed faintly green was pooling beneath it, and the smell was sharp and ozone-like. The way the air smelled after lightning strikes. Approached slowly, the way he'd approach a stray dog that might bite or bolt. His plumber's eye automatically cataloged what he was seeing. Structural integrity compromised. Fluid systems failing. Probably pressure loss, causing the pitch changes in that humming sound. "It's hurt," he said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. "It's an it, not a he or she?" Marcus asked, staying close behind. I don't know what it is, but look at these tears in the hull. And this green stuff, it's not random. There's a pattern to the dripping, like a circulatory system under pressure that's been punctured. Luke had spent his entire adult life looking at pipes, understanding how fluids moved through systems, recognizing when something was working properly and when it wasn't. This thing, whatever it was, had the same fundamental logic as any plumbing system, just more complicated. The humming intensified, and one section of the hull became transparent. Luke found himself staring at what was unmistakably a face, if you could call it that. Features that suggested intelligence, eyes that tracked his movement, an expression that, across whatever gap of evolution or origin separated them, clearly communicated pain and hope. Well, Luke said, adjusting his tool belt and walking forward, let's see what we can do. The being inside the craft looked nothing like the aliens in movies, no oversized heads or bug eyes. Instead, Zektar resembled something between a dolphin and a person. If a person could be made of starlight, held together by will, its skin shifted between deep blue and silver, and when it spoke, the words appeared in Luke's mind, rather than his ears. Please. The voice was warm, desperately polite. I do not wish to cause alarm. My ship has suffered catastrophic system failure. Luke looked back at Marcus, who was staring open-mouthed. You hearing this too? Marcus nodded. Mutely. Your species designation is unknown to me, but you approached with tools and purpose. Are you repair specialists? I'm a plumber, Luke said, feeling slightly ridiculous. I fix pipes, leaks, water systems. This is Marcus, my apprentice. The alien's expression. Luke was getting better at reading the subtle shifts in its luminescent features, suggested confusion. Plumber? This term is not in my linguistic database. However, your approach indicated familiarity with fluid dynamics and pressure systems. My ship's biohydraulic circulation has been severed in 17 locations. Biohydraulic? Luke stepped closer to the transparent section. You mean this green stuff is like blood for your ship? More precisely, it is the medium through which all ship functions are coordinated. Navigation, life support, propulsion, structural integrity all depend on proper circulation of the neural fluid. Without it, I will die, and my ship will become attuned. The matter-of-fact way Zektar said this hit Luke harder than he expected. 27 years of emergency plumbing calls had taught him to recognize genuine desperation, whether it was coming from a restaurant owner with a burst pipe or an old lady whose water heater had failed in the middle of winter. Okay, Luke sighed, rolling up his sleeves. Show me where it's worst. Zektar manipulated something inside the craft, and more sections became transparent. Luke could see the damage, now rips and tears throughout a network of what looked like organic tubes, some as thin as drinking straws, others as thick as his arm. The green neural fluid was hemorrhaging from dozens of locations. Jesus, Luke muttered. It's like someone took a shotgun to your cardiovascular system. Shotgun? Never mind. Look, I can see the problem. Your ... Biohydraulic lines have been compromised in multiple locations. The pressure's dropping because you're losing fluid faster than the system can compensate. Luke walked around the craft, his trained eye following the pattern of damage. What I don't understand is why your repair systems haven't kicked in. Most advanced systems have some kind of automatic response to this kind of failure. They have. Zektar's mental voice carried a note of frustration. Emergency protocols sealed the major ruptures, but this created secondary pressure buildups that caused additional failures. My ship's repair systems are designed for gradual deterioration or single-point failures, not catastrophic multi-system damage. Luke nodded. He'd seen the same problem in old buildings where emergency shutoffs had been triggered, creating water hammer effects that caused new breaks elsewhere in the system. And you can't just, I don't know, land somewhere and get proper repairs? I am a deep space cartographer, Zektar explained. My people, the Veltar, do not maintain repair facilities on primitive worlds. The nearest facility with appropriate technology is 47 light-years away. My ship's current condition would not survive the journey. Primitive worlds? Marcus spoke up for the first time. Excuse me? Zektar's skin shifted to what Luke was learning indicated embarrassment. I apologize. I did not intend offense. Your world shows promising signs of developing technology, but your methods are different from ours. Luke laughed, a sound that echoed strangely in the tunnel. Different, kid? We're different from ourselves half the time. What you call primitive, we call making do with what we have. He walked back to the largest breach in the hull, where neural fluid was pooling into an impromptu puddle. The tear was about 8 inches long and irregularly shaped, like metal fatigue failure. But the edges weren't clean. They were fuzzy, almost organic. This isn't battle damage, Luke said. This is system stress. You pushed your ship too hard, didn't you? How could you possibly? Because I've seen this same pattern 1,000 times. Pipes that blow out because someone asked them to handle more pressure than they were rated for. Your ship didn't get attacked. You overloaded it. There was a long pause before Ziktar responded. I was attempting to make a long-range jump to avoid a stellar phenomenon. I may have exceeded safe parameters. And instead of making 3 shorter jumps, you tried to do it all at once and blew out your hydraulics. Luke shook his head. Male, right? How did you lucky guess? Look, the good news is that this kind of damage I can fix. The bad news is that your fancy automated systems keep fighting against any repair I try to make. Every time I seal one leak, something else adjusts pressure somewhere else and creates a new problem. Luke looked at his basic tools, then at the sophisticated alien technology. I need you to shut down all your automatic repair protocols. That would be extremely dangerous. Without them, any remaining systems could fail completely. And if you leave them on, we'll be chasing leaks all day while your fluid levels drop to nothing. Luke met the alien's eyes through the transparent hull. Look, Ziktar, can I call you Ziktar? I've been fixing impossible leaks for 27 years. Half the time, the problem isn't the pipe that's broken. It's all the helpful systems that are trying to compensate for the broken pipe. Marcus watched this conversation like a tennis match, his head turning back and forth between his mentor and the alien. Sometimes, Luke continued, you have to turn off all the smart systems and fix things the stupid way. Patch the holes, rebuild the pressure gradually, test each section before bringing the next one online. Your approach is crude. Yeah, well, crude works. Pretty dies in space. Luke hefted his pipe cutter. Your choice, Ziktar. You can wait here for 47 years for a proper repair facility to come to you. Or you can trust a primitive plumber to jury-rig your ship back to life. The alien skin shifted through several colors Luke hadn't seen before. Finally, it settled on a deep amber that somehow conveyed resignation, mixed with hope. Very well. I will disable the automatic systems. But I must warn you, if your repairs fail, we will both die. The ship's life support is integrated with the hydraulic network. Then we better not fail. Luke looked around the tunnel, calculating what he'd need. Marcus, go back to the truck and bring me everything. All the pipe cement, the emergency patches, the flexible couplings. And call Sophia, tell her, I'm going to be late for dinner. What do I tell her we're doing? Luke looked at the alien ship. Its beautiful pilot, the green neural fluid that was slowly draining away like the life from a wounded animal. Tell her I'm fixing the most important leak of my career. 3 hours into the repair, Luke's back was screaming and his knees felt like broken glass. But he'd managed to seal 12 of the 17 major breaches. The neural fluid had stopped hemorrhaging, though the levels were still critically low. Pass me that tube of thread compound, he called to Marcus, who was holding a flashlight and looking wheezy. The smell of the neural fluid was getting to both of them, not unpleasant exactly, but alien in a way that made their human brains send up warning flags. Your technique is fascinating, Ziktar observed as Luke carefully wrapped another biohydraulic line with waterproof tape before applying a pipe clamp. You appeared to be creating redundant mechanical seals rather than molecular bonding. Redundancy's the key, Luke grunted, tightening the clamp. Molecular bonding fails, you're screwed. Mechanical seal fails, you've got backup systems. He wiped his hands on a rag. Plus, I can fix a mechanical seal with basic tools. Your molecular bonding probably requires equipment I can't even pronounce. You are correct. Molecular repair requires a temporal flux resonator. See? I don't even know what those words mean in that order. Luke moved to the next breach, a hairline crack that was seeping fluid at an alarming rate. Tell me about your family, Zektar. My family? Yeah? You said you're a cartographer. That's usually a solo job, but most people have someone waiting for them at home. There was a pause, and the alien skin shifted to a darker blue. I have an offspring unit, Keshtar. She is what you might call 8 years old in your time. Measurement: 8 years old, and Dad's off mapping the galaxy. Luke's voice was gentle, without judgment. That's got to be hard. It is ... necessary. The Veltar expansion requires accurate stellar cartography. My work contributes to the greater knowledge of our people. And what does Keshtar think about Dad being gone for months at a time? She expresses concern about my absence. Her primary caregiver, her other parent, indicates that Keshtar has developed separation anxiety. Luke applied compound to the hairline crack, working it into the microscopic gaps with a precision that came from decades of practice. She's scared you won't come home. That is an oversimplification of complex psychological. No, it's not. Luke looked up from his work. She's 8. Dad goes away in a spaceship for long periods. Sometimes Dad doesn't come back when he says he will, because work is important. So she's scared. Zektar's skin rippled with patterns Luke was beginning to recognize as distress. How do you know this? Because my daughter went through the same thing when I was working too much. Different situation. I was just working 14-hour days trying to build the business, but Sophia was 8 once too. And 8-year-old kids, human or alien, need their parents to come home. Marcus, who had been quiet for most of this exchange, spoke up. My dad was gone a lot too. Military. I used to have nightmares about him not coming back. But your work is important too, Zektar said to Luke. People require functional water systems. Surely your offspring understands this necessity. Sure, she does. Now, but when she was 8, Luke shook his head. She understood that Daddy was always fixing something more important than spending time with her. The admission hung in the air, like the ozone smell of the neural fluid. Luke had never said it quite that way before, even to himself. The thing is, Luke continued, carefully positioning a patch over the crack. Work's always going to be there. Pipes are always going to break. People are always going to need things fixed. But your kid is only 8 once. Your perspective is ... troubling. Why troubling? Because it suggests that my priorities may be fundamentally incorrect. Luke finished, sealing the crack, and moved to check his earlier repairs. The fluid levels had stabilized, though they were still low. I'm not saying your work isn't important, Zektar. I'm saying maybe there's a way to do important work without sacrificing everything else. But individual desires must be subordinated to collective needs. Says who? The question clearly caught the alien off guard. The skin patterns shifted rapidly through several configurations before settling on confused amber. That is the foundational principle of Veltar society. Individual wants are secondary to species advancement. And how's that working out for you? Marcus snorted, quickly covering it with a cough. I do not understand the question. Are you happy? Zektar? Happiness is... This concept does not translate well. I am functionally productive. That's not the same thing. Luke sat back on his heels, looking at the alien through the transparent hull. Look, I spent 15 years being functionally productive, built a successful plumbing business, made good money, had a reputation for solving impossible problems. And I was miserable. Why? Because I never went to Sophia's school plays, never coached her soccer team, missed 3 Christmases because of emergency calls. I was so busy being important and necessary that I forgot why any of it mattered in the first place. Luke picked up a different size clip and examined the next breach. This one was tricky, a Jew junction where 3 biohydraulic lines met. The failure had created a complex tier that would require careful reconstruction. So what changed? Marcus asked. Sophia got accepted to graduate school, Luke said, beginning to work on the I-junction. Full ride, biochemistry PhD program. I was so proud I could barely see straight. And you know what she said when I told her I was proud? Both Marcus and Zektar waited. She said, "Thanks, Dad. I wish she'd been around to see me earn it." Luke's hands never stopped working, but his voice went quiet. Broke my heart. Because she was right. I'd been so busy being the best plumber, in Snow Paulo that I'd missed watching my daughter become an amazing person. And this realization altered your behavior? Started turning down weekend emergency calls, unless it was life or death. Hired Marcus here, so I could train someone else to handle the routine stuff. Started saying no to jobs that would keep me away from home for weeks. Loop tested the UI junction repair, adjusting the clamps. Business made less money, but I got to take Sophia to dinner once a week. Got to hear about her research, her friends, her dreams. The neural fluid pressure was slowly building back up. Luke could see it in the way the remaining breaches were beginning to seep more actively. The system was coming back to life. The thing is, Luke continued, I'm still a good plumber. Maybe better, because I'm not exhausted all the time. But now, I'm also a decent father. And that matters more than any pipe I'll ever fix. Even if it means contributing less to society's overall advancement. Sector, if your society's advancement depends on fathers never seeing their children grow up, then maybe your society needs to advance in a different direction. The alien was quiet for a long time, the skin patterns cycling through what Luke was learning to read as deep thought. Keshtar asked me recently why I could not perform cartographic analysis from our home system. And what did you tell her? That deep space mapping requires physical presence at distant coordinates. That remote analysis lacks sufficient precision. Luke sealed the UI junction and moved to the next breach. Only 3 more to go. Is that true? Another long pause. Mostly true, though recent advances in quantum entanglement communication suggest that hybrid approaches might be feasible. Hybrid approaches? Shorter missions, more time at home base for analysis, collaboration with other cartographers rather than solo expeditions. Sounds like you could still do important work without abandoning your daughter. The efficiency would be reduced by approximately 12%. Luke looked at the alien seriously. Zektar, would you trade 12% efficiency for being there when Keshtar needs you? The skin patterns shifted to something Luke hadn't seen before, a warm gold that seemed to pulse with inner light. Yes, came the mental voice, soft and certain. Yes, I would. Luke was tightening the final clamp when the ship's humming suddenly shifted to a higher, more urgent pitch. The remaining neural fluid began circulating faster, and several new leaks opened simultaneously. Shit, Luke muttered, watching green fluid spray from 3 different locations. Zektar, what just happened? The system is attempting to return to full operational status, the alien replied, its skin now a stressed purple. But the pressure differential is too great. The repairs cannot withstand normal operating parameters. You mean we fixed it too well? Marcus asked. No. We did not fix it well enough, Luke corrected, already moving toward the new leaks. The ship thinks it's healthy now, so it's trying to run at normal pressure. But our patches weren't designed for that kind of stress. The largest new leak was at one of Luke's earlier repair sites. The mechanical clamp was holding, but neural fluid was seeping around the edges, where the biohydraulic line met his human-engineered patch. I must shut down the system again, Zektar said urgently. No, wait, Luke said, studying the failure pattern. If you shut down now, we'll lose all the pressure we've built up, and I don't think we have enough neural fluid left for another startup sequence. Then, what do you propose? Luke looked at his remaining supplies. Basic plumbing materials, designed for water pressures measured in pounds per square inch, not whatever exotic forces kept an interstellar ship operational. He was trying to repair a Formula One engine with duct tape and prayer. I need to understand your system better, he said finally. These biohydraulic lines, they're not just pipes, are they? They're more like arteries. They adapt to changing pressure requirements? Correct. They are semi-autonomous biological systems that respond to ship needs in real time. So when I clamp them, I'm not just stopping a leak. I'm also preventing them from doing whatever adaptive response they normally do. That is an astute observation. Luke sat back on his heels thinking. 27 years of fixing impossible problems had taught him that sometimes the solution wasn't more sophisticated. It was simpler. The ship's systems were too smart for his repairs to work properly. Marcus, hand me that roll of mesh gauze. The stuff we use for reinforcing joint compound? Yeah. Luke began unwrapping one of his tighter clamps. Neural fluid immediately began seeping out, but slowly. Zektar, Can these biohydraulic lines grow back together if they're properly supported? In theory, yes. But the process requires time and optimal conditions. How much time? For major repairs? Several days? We don't have several days. Your life support is tied into this system. Luke carefully positioned the mesh gauze around the leaking junction. But what if I could give them just enough support to start the healing process, while still allowing them to adapt to pressure changes? Instead of clamping the line rigid, Luke wrapped it with the mesh gauze, creating a flexible support structure. Then he applied joint compound, not as a permanent seal, but as a temporary matrix that would hold everything in place while allowing for slight movement. That might actually work, Zektar said, its skin shifting to surprised silver. You are essentially creating an artificial extracellular matrix. I have no idea what that means, but if it sounds right to you, I'll take it. Luke moved to the next leak, applying the same technique. The key is giving your ship what it needs to heal itself, not trying to impose a rigid solution. As he worked, the neural fluid pressure stabilized instead of continuing to climb. The biohydraulic lines began to respond more naturally, expanding and contracting slightly as they adjusted to the repairs. It's working, Marcus said, watching the fluid levels on Zektar's displays. The leaking has almost stopped. But Luke was frowning at something else. Zektar, your neural fluid levels are still too low, aren't they? Even if we stop all the leaks, you don't have enough left to reach that repair facility 47 light years away. That is ... correct. I had hoped that stopping the hemorrhaging would be sufficient, but you are right. I have lost approximately 37% of my neural fluid capacity. Can't you synthesize more? The production systems require 3 weeks of cultivation time. I do not have sufficient life support reserves. Luke looked around the tunnel, thinking. Then his gaze settled on Marcus's energy drink. What's the primary component of your neural fluid? He asked. It is a complex organic matrix with quantum entangled metallic nanites suspended in a biocompatible carrier medium. That's not what I asked. What's the carrier medium made of? Primarily, hydrogen and oxygen molecules in a specific crystalline configuration, enhanced with trace minerals and organic compounds for biological compatibility. Luke started laughing, a sound that echoed strangely off the tunnel walls. What's funny? Marcus asked. He needs water, Luke said. Fancy, complicated, quantum-entangled water, but at its base, it's still H2O. He looked at Zektar through the transparent hull. Your people never thought to look for the basic component, because it's too simple, right? Water is a common compound throughout the galaxy. It would never occur to our engineers that it could be suitable for neural fluid synthesis. But if I could get you clean water, really clean water, your ship could process it into more neural fluid. The synthesis process would still require the quantum-entangled nanites and trace compounds. But yes, pure water could serve as the base medium. However, the purity requirements are extremely specific. Luke grinned. Marcus, how far are we from the municipal water treatment plant? About 3 kilometers. Why? Because I just realized something. I've been working on the filtration systems at that plant for 15 years. I know every filter, every purification stage, every quality control measure they use. Luke stood up, joints protesting, and I know how to bypass the regular output and tap directly into the final stage ultra-pure water they use for equipment cleaning. You believe you can acquire water of sufficient purity for neural fluid synthesis? I believe I can get you water so pure it doesn't legally exist. Luke started gathering his tools. Municipal ultra-pure water isn't supposed to leave the treatment facility. It's too valuable for industrial applications. But I've got maintenance access to the entire system. This would be ... highly irregular. Zektar, you're an alien who crashed into our subway tunnels. I think we've moved past worrying about regular. Luke looked at the partially repaired ship, its biohydraulic systems slowly healing themselves with his crude but effective support structures. Besides, worst-case scenario, I get fired for stealing water. And best-case scenario? Best case? You get to go home to your daughter. The alien skin shifted to that warm gold pattern Luke had seen before. You would risk your professional standing for someone you met 3 hours ago? I'd risk a lot more than that to help a father get home to his kid. Luke shouldered his tool bag. Marcus, you're with me. We're going to commit some very creative municipal water theft. Wait, Zektar called. There is something you should know. My ship's distress beacon has been transmitting since the crash. A Vieltar rescue vessel is en route. That's good news, right? Normally, yes. But rescue protocols dictate that any primitive species that makes contact with disabled Veltar technology must be contained. Luke stopped walking. Contained how? Memory alteration? Removal from the contact site. Official records of the incident are classified indefinitely. You're saying if your people show up, they'll erase our memories? It is standard procedure to prevent cultural contamination. Marcus looked terrified. How long until they get here? Approximately 14 hours. Luke considered this. 14 hours to steal municipal water, synthesize enough neural fluid to get Zektar's ship operational, and somehow convince an advanced alien species not to mind-wipe 2 human plumbers. Well, he said finally, I've had worse days. The Snow Paulo Municipal Water Treatment Plant at 2 a.m. looked like something from a science fiction movie itself. Massive cylindrical tanks, networks of pipes, and the quiet hum of machinery that never slept. Luke had his maintenance keys, but more importantly, he knew every blind spot in the security system from years of emergency repairs. This feels like breaking and entering, Marcus whispered as they made their way past the main treatment tanks. It's not breaking if you have keys, Luke replied, and it's not entering if you're supposed to be here, technically. They reached the ultra-purification section, where water underwent final filtration through reverse osmosis, deionization, and UV sterilization. The output was cleaner than anything that occurred naturally on Earth, essentially H2O with nothing else. How much do we need? Marcus asked, watching Luke connect a bypass hose to the ultra-pure output valve. Zektar said about 40 liters should be enough for his ship's synthesis process. Luke opened the valve, and crystal-clear water began flowing into the borrowed containers they'd brought. The hard part isn't getting the water. It's getting it back to the tunnel without contaminating it. And then what? We just pour it into an alien spaceship and hope for the best, more or less. Luke sealed the first container and moved to fill the second. Though Zektar's ship will need to process it through their synthesis systems first. Convert pure water into quantum-entangled neural fluid or whatever. They were loading the containers into Marcus's car when Luke's phone rang. Sophia, Dad, where are you? I've been calling for hours. Sorry, sweetheart. Work emergency. Remember that leak I told you about? Dad, it's 2 a.m. What kind of leak takes 12 hours to fix? Luke looked at the containers of stolen ultra-pure water in the back seat, thought about the alien ship hidden in the subway tunnel, and realized there was no way to explain any of this that wouldn't sound completely insane. The complicated kind, he said finally, but I'm almost done. Should be home in a few hours. Dad, you sound weird. Are you okay? I'm fine. Just tired? And Sophia, I love you. There was a pause. I love you too, Dad, but you're starting to worry me. I'll explain everything later, I promise. He hung up, knowing that if Zektar's people showed up on schedule, there wouldn't be a later he could remember to explain. Back in the tunnel, Zektar's condition had deteriorated. The alien's skin patterns were sluggish, and its mental voice was weaker than before. The ultra-pure water is perfect, Zektar confirmed, as Luke connected their hose to the ship's intake port. My synthesis systems are already beginning conversion to neural fluid. How long will it take? Approximately 6 hours for full synthesis and integration. Luke checked his watch. 3:17 a.m. And your rescue ship arrives when? Estimated arrival, 5:47 a.m. So we've got about 2.5 hours to get you operational and figure out how to convince your people not to mind-wipe us. Luke, the alien's mental voice was sad. Even if my ship becomes operational, I cannot guarantee that Veltar protocols will be waived. The contamination procedures are ... obsolete. What if you weren't crashed when they arrived? Marcus asked suddenly. What if you were just ... visiting? Luke looked at his apprentice with new respect. Kid's got a point. If your people show up and find you having a normal conversation with locals instead of being rescued from a crash site, that changes the situation, right? Theoretically, yes. First contact protocols are different from contamination containment, but my ship would need to be fully operational and positioned as if it had landed intentionally. Can we move it? If the neural fluid synthesis is successful, yes, but the ship would need to be relocated to a site consistent with peaceful exploration, rather than emergency crash landing. Luke thought about the geography around the terminal. There's a park about 2 kilometers north of here. Parc de Laz. Open space, minimal civilian traffic at night. If we could get your ship there, the deception would need to be complete. All evidence of the crash removed, the tunnel sealed, your memories of the emergency repairs, forgotten. Wait, what? For the deception to work, you would need to appear as if you discovered me in the park during a routine first contact scenario, not as if you repaired my crashed vessel. So we'd still get mind wiped? Not mind wiped. Memory. Adjusted. You would remember meeting me, but not the crash or the repairs. The rescue team would assume you were simply the first humans to make contact during my exploratory mission. Luke sat down heavily on a piece of broken concrete. After everything they'd been through, after the connection he'd felt helping Zektar understand what really mattered in life, they were still going to lose their memories of it. There's got to be another way, he said. I have been considering alternatives. Zektar's mental voice brightened slightly. What if the first contact was official? What if human authorities were already aware of my presence? What do you mean? If I could establish formal communication with your government representatives before the rescue team arrives, then the protocols change entirely. This would become a diplomatic situation rather than a contamination scenario. Marcus laughed, but not in a happy way. Right, because calling the Brazilian government at 3 a.m. to report alien contact is totally going to work. Actually, Luke said slowly, it might. Both Marcus and Zektar focused on him. My daughter, Sophia, she's working on her PhD in biochemistry at USP University of São Paulo. But before that, she did her master's thesis on astrobiology. She's got connections with SETI researchers, people who study the possibility of alien life. SETI? Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Scientists who are specifically looking for proof that aliens exist. Luke pulled out his phone. And more importantly, Sophia knows people in the university administration, people with connections to government science advisors. Dad, you want to call your daughter at 3 a.m. and tell her you found an alien? I want to call my daughter and ask her to help save a friend. Luke dialed Sophia's number, his heart pounding. Dad, what's wrong? You never call this late unless... Sophia, I need you to listen very carefully. I'm about to tell you something that sounds impossible, but I need you to trust me. You're scaring me. I'm with someone who needs help. Someone very important from very far away. And in about 2 hours, some other people are going to arrive who might try to cover up the fact that this meeting ever happened. There was a pause. Dad, have you been drinking? I've never been more sober in my life. Luke looked at Zektar, who was watching through the transparent hull. Sophia, remember when you were 8 and you asked me if I thought aliens were real? And I said that in a universe this big, we couldn't be alone. Yes, I was right. And one of them needs our help. Another pause. Longer this time. Dad, if this is some kind of joke, put me on speakerphone and say hello to Zektar. Luke held his phone toward the ship. Greetings, Sophia Santos, came Zektar's mental voice, somehow transmitting through the phone's microphone. Your father has spoken of you with great affection. You study the possibility of life beyond your world, correct? The silence from the phone stretched for nearly 30 seconds. Holy shit. Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. Language, Luke said automatically. Dad, there is an alien talking to me through your phone. I think language restrictions are suspended. Sophia, Zektar continued. Your father has repaired my ship and quite possibly saved my life. But my people will arrive soon, and they will attempt to classify this entire encounter. I need human authorities to be aware of my presence before that happens. What? What do you need me to do? Luke had never been more proud of his daughter. No hysteria, no disbelief, just immediate focus on how to help. Call Dr. Martinez, Luke said. Your astrobiology professor. Get him to contact whoever he knows in government science departments. Tell them we have confirmation of extraterrestrial intelligence and need immediate official documentation. Dr. Martinez is going to think I've lost my mind. Perhaps this will convince him, Zektar said, and suddenly Sophia's phone screen lit up with detailed star charts, mathematical equations, and what looked like a real-time view of Earth from orbit. Oh my God, Sophia breathed. These calculations. This is proof of faster-than-light travel. And mathematics alone will revolutionize physics. I am transmitting all non-classified technical data to your device. Use it to establish credibility with your scientific contacts. Dad, I'm calling Dr. Martinez right now. Then I'm calling everyone I know in the astronomy department. This is the most important discovery in human history. Just hurry, sweetheart. We don't have much time. Luke hung up and looked at Zektar. Think it'll work? Your offspring is remarkably adaptive. Most beings require significant time to process first contact scenarios. She gets that from her mother, Luke said. I just fix pipes. You do much more. And fix pipes, Luke Foster. You see systems that others cannot understand. And you find solutions where others see only problems. The ship's humming was getting stronger as the neural fluid synthesis progressed. Luke could see the biohydraulic lines filling with green liquid. His crude but effective patches allowing the system to heal while maintaining proper pressure. Will you remember us? Marcus asked quietly. After your rescue team processes everything, I will remember everything, Zektar promised. And I will ensure that official records reflect your assistance. You will not be forgotten. Luke's phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Dr. Martinez is freaking out, but he's making calls. Government science advisor will be here within the hour. Also, Mom wants to know why you're discovering aliens without her. Luke laughed, surprising himself. Your rescue team is going to arrive to find a formal first contact scenario with official human government representation. That ... That changes everything. This will be classified as a diplomatic encounter rather than a contamination event, and our memories will remain intact, detailed, and officially documented as the first successful human-Veltar cooperation. The Parc de Luz at dawn was surreal. Zektar's ship sat gracefully on the grass, like it had always been there, its hull gleaming in the morning sun. Dr. Martinez and two government officials were interviewing Luke and Marcus, while Sophia documented everything with scientific precision. So you used municipal water treatment filtration to synthesize alien neural fluid? Dr. Martinez was shaking his head in amazement. That's brilliant improvisation. I just saw a leak that needed fixing, Luke said. Everything else was Zektar's technology. The Veltar rescue ship arrived exactly on schedule, appearing in the sky like a silver cloud that suddenly became solid. But instead of a contamination team, they found an official first contact scenario with human scientists, government representatives, and detailed documentation of successful interspecies cooperation. Zektar emerged from his ship to meet the rescue team. His skin patterns now the healthy gold Luke had learned to associate with contentment. Command leader Dextar. Zektar communicated, including Luke and the others in the mental conversation. I must report successful emergency repairs, facilitated by local technical specialists. The humans demonstrated remarkable ingenuity in adapting their primitive. He paused, skin shifting to embarrassed amber. Their different technological approaches to our biohydraulic systems. You allowed primitives to modify Veltar technology? The rescue team leader's mental voice carried clear disapproval. I allowed skilled repair specialists to save my life, using methods our engineers had not considered. The techniques were crude but effective. Luke stepped forward. Commander Dextar, your cartographer crashed because he was pushing his ship beyond safe parameters to get home to his daughter. That's not a technology problem. That's a priority problem. The rescue team leader's attention focused on Luke like a spotlight. You presume to criticize Veltar operational procedures? I'm saying any species that thinks work is more important than family is going to have problems, no matter how advanced their technology gets. Sophia moved to stand beside her father, tablet in hand. We've been analyzing the technical data Zektar shared with us. Your biohydraulic systems are incredibly sophisticated, but they're also incredibly rigid. They can't adapt to unexpected situations. Sometimes, Marcus added, gaining confidence, the best solution isn't the most sophisticated one. It's the one that actually works. Dextar's skin patterns cycled through what Luke was learning to recognize as deep consideration. These humans repaired systems that our automated protocols could not address. Zektar continued. More significantly, they demonstrated repair philosophies that could revolutionize our maintenance approaches. Flexible support structures instead of rigid replacements. Redundant simple systems instead of complex single points of failure. And they did it all to help a father get home to his kid, Dr. Martinez added. That says something about their character. Dextar approached Luke directly. You are the primary repair specialist? I'm a plumber, Luke said simply. I fix leaks. Our engineers will want to study your methods. Happy to share them, but I've got one condition. The aliens and humans all focused on Luke. Zektar goes home to his daughter, and he stays there long enough to actually be a father. Luke looked directly at the rescue team leader. Your cartography program can spare one guy long enough for him to figure out how to balance work and family. This is highly irregular, actually, Zektar interrupted. Luke's repair methodology has given me ideas for improving our entire maintenance philosophy. I could develop these concepts more effectively from our home system, using remote coordination with field teams rather than solo deep space missions. You wish to restructure your operational parameters? I wish to be present for my daughter's development while still contributing meaningfully to our expansion efforts. The humans have shown me that this is not only possible, but potentially more effective. Dextar's skin settled into decision yellow. Very well. This encounter will be classified as a beneficial first contact. Technical exchanges will be documented for study, and Zektar will be reassigned to home system cartographic coordination with field support duties. Luke felt a weight lift from Finn, his shoulders that he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. 3 months later, Luke was installing a new water heater for Mrs. Chun when his phone chimed with an impossible message. A transmission from the Veltar home system. Greetings, Luke Foster. This is Keshtar, offspring of ZEK single quotes tar. Luke nearly dropped his wrench. Marcus, come look at this. My parent has told me many stories of the human who taught him that family comes first. I wanted to thank you for bringing my father home. Another message followed, this one from Zektar himself. Luke, the hybrid cartographic program is exceeding all efficiency projections. Remote coordination with field teams is actually 18% more effective than solo missions. But more importantly, I was here when Keshtar took her first flight. Thank you. Luke typed back. How's the job satisfaction? Much improved. Also, our engineers have incorporated your flexible repair methodologies into standard protocols. You are credited as co-developer of the Foster Adaptive Support System. Your techniques are being implemented across the fleet. Dad, Sophia called from the kitchen. Your alien friend is on the news again. Something about joint human Veltar engineering projects? Luke smiled, tightening the final connection on Mrs. Chun's water heater. The leak was fixed. The pressure was perfect. And somewhere 47 light years away, a father was home in time for dinner with his daughter. Some things, apparently, were universal.